like they have been kept in a freezer. वही opinion है जो उनको लगता है 20 साल पहले जो स्थिति थी वही स्थिति आज है. If you don't go in the field, how are you going to know how India is changing? This is the most rapidly changing country in the world. And I saw it for myself. I am as guilty as anyone else. मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि मैं नहीं करता, but I remember during the Bihar election this time, I told one of my editors, I said, मैं जाऊंगा बिहार election cover करने on one condition. I will not meet the politicians. Because I know, I can tell you sitting in the studio what Lalu Prasad will say, what Nitish Kumar will say, what Ram Vilas Paswan will say. I want to meet the people of Bihar. And I will travel from one end of Bihar to the other end, but I will only meet the people. And frankly, when I finished that journey, I knew who was winning the election of Bihar. Because the people of Bihar are the most political people in this country. आप चाय वाले के दुकान पर बैठो, आप वो लिट्टी चोखा वाले के दुकान पर बैठो, he has an opinion on every issue. As a result, you were able to know what people felt. And in the end, people vote. लालू प्रसाद तो लालू को ही वोट देगा, रामविलास पासवान और उसका परिवार रामविलास को ही वोट देगा. जनता देगी वोट जो जनता चाहे. Every now and then you meet one Bihari who says कि मैं क्यों बोलूँ आपको कि मैं किसको वोट दे रहा हूँ. फिर वो आपको बगल में बुलाता है और कहता है सर इसको मैं वोट दे रहा हूँ. And you understand. So if you go out in the field and you move out of politicians, you move out of intellectuals, you move out of the usual suspects, आपको दुनिया देखने का मौका मिलता है, आपको देश देखने का मौका मिलता है, आपको देश कैसे बदल रहा है. And I'll give you an example of Bihar where you realize how the election was changing. मैं एक छोटे से गांव में गया. वो गांव है, मेरा ड्राइवर जो मेरे साथ 20 साल से काम कर रहा है उसने कहा सर आप जा रहे हैं वहाँ, मेरे पिताजी को जाकर एक बार मिल लीजिएगा. वो है एक, ही कम्स फ्रॉम अ शेड्यूल कास्ट कम्युनिटी. तो उसके पिताजी बहुत खुश हुए कि मैं आया था. तो मैंने कहा सर आपके गांव में बदलाव क्या आया. सो ही वॉज हेजिटेंट टू से समथिंग. देन हिज वाइफ केम देयर and his wife told me a story. वो बड़े first time I think she was in a sense opening up. She said sir पहले हमें बिजली इस गांव में 1 घंटे 2 घंटे मिलती थी, अब हमें बिजली 18 घंटे मिलती है. We get 18 hours of power. So I said how has it changed your life? She said पहले जितना भी मुझे खाना पकाना था वो 1-2 घंटे में मैं करती थी, अब मैं सुबह शाम कर सकती हूँ और मुझे चैन मिलता है. तो मैंने कहा आप इसका श्रेय किसको देगी. सर वो तो नीतीश बाबू को ही मैं दूंगी क्योंकि उनकी सरकार है. ट्रस्ट मी, रूरल इलेक्ट्रिफिकेशन डिड मच मोर फॉर नीतीश कुमार देन एनी अदर इश्यू इन दिस इलेक्शन. नाउ इफ यू सिट इन अ स्टूडियो you will not know this story. Because if you sit in a studio, you will say caste arithmetic, वो तो यादव इसके साथ है, कुर्मी उसके साथ है, दलित और उसके on the basis of that हम लोग ABC करके हम चुनाव का समीकरण करते हैं. But if you go down and meet a Dalit woman, a housewife, who is saying that her life has changed and she has been empowered by the fact that she can now cook a meal twice a day or thrice a day because she's getting electricity, suddenly your brain also gets some electricity. And you realize that eureka, maybe the country is changing more than we think. Similarly, in the last elections 5 years ago, rural roads, because people now are connected from across Bihar through better highways, through better roads, people's lives are changing. So I think unless agar aap studio mein baithoge, you will never be able to understand. It's like a writer. You know, unless a writer sometimes experiences something, maybe he lives, writers maybe can live in a make-believe world, but if you're a non-fiction writer, you have to sometimes experience what is happening to actually be able to write about it. So I think that is where journalism has lost out. In journalism, we have confined ourselves to the studios, started what I call the Ravan school of journalism. इसीलिए हमें राम मिलना मुश्किल पड़ गया है. Ram is in the people's hearts, not in the studio.
Well, sir, your metaphor of Ravan's school of journalism reminds me of a very well-known journalist whom we happen to see every day on the television studios and who invites around 10 panelists to his to his discussions and spends up half of the time speaking himself. Anyway, now here what I find one thing very crucial is, apart from the question of freedom of speaking, the question of freedom of being heard is very important, which I personally feel. Now, probably to my understanding, the panel discussions or the discussions that we have playing out on our news channels is important in a sense because it is supposed to, at least theoretically, it is supposed to create some form of a discussion and debate over the issues and shape our opinions and understandings. So, but the way these debates tend to play out over television studios, do you feel that somehow this right to be heard gets very much compromised over these television debates?
Look, I don't think you should generalize in any of this. There is a tendency that we have in all fields of life to generalize ki this is what is happening across the field. Yes, there is a problem. There's absolutely no doubt about it that there is a problem, that people are often not heard. We don't want to hear alternative viewpoints which we may be uncomfortable with. Mr. Daruwala is here and he will bear me out during the so-called award Wapsi entire debate. Some channels had decided that all those who are returning awards are anti-national. You see, nowadays the easiest thing is to paint someone as a Deshdrohi. And say go to Pakistan. The problem is there aren't enough visas or flights to go to Pakistan also. That's another issue. But essentially, even in that debate, people had already decided कि ये जो आए हैं ये तो anti-national है, ये देशद्रोही है, इनको हमें खत्म करना है. And I actually call it what I call the Samna School of Journalism. What is the Samna School of Journalism? Bal Thackeray started a newspaper called Samna many years ago. Samna looked for one enemy every day. आज का दुश्मन कौन? या आज का मुजरिम कौन? You see, you look for an enemy. ठाकरे over the years looked for different men. एक दिन गुजराती को पकड़ा, दूसरे दिन नॉर्थ इंडियन को पकड़ा, तीसरे दिन मुसलमानों को पकड़ा. Finally, we've reached a stage where अभी कोई रह नहीं गया है. तो इसीलिए शिवसेना का ग्राफ कम क्यों हुआ है? कोई दुश्मन ही नहीं रह गया अब. But similarly, journalism as well. In a lot of the debates, you have essentially taken a judgment that so-and-so who is there is the enemy. And therefore, that person has to be targeted today. And that person doesn't deserve a right to be heard, to answer your question. That person must be prosecuted. Essentially, that person is being brought into the public domain to be humiliated, to be embarrassed, to be in some way targeted, which is a very dangerous way in which we operate. Because you are then creating an extremely binary, polarized society. Either you are with us or with them. या तो आप हमारे साथ हो या आप देशद्रोही हो. आप देशभक्त हो कि नहीं तो आप देशद्रोही हो. If you are going to create journalism on the basis of binary polarization, you are going to somewhere down the line divide this great country of ours. And the uniqueness of this country is that it is one country where diversity must be respected. There are different people with different opinions. And just because I have an opinion which you may not be satisfied with, doesn't make me your enemy. So I think it's not just the right to be heard which is being compromised. Along with that, there is this unwillingness to listen to the other side. कि किसी की opinion जो होगी वो मुझसे अलग होगी. और अगर वो opinion मुझसे अलग है, तो वो मेरा दुश्मन बन गया. That is the problem I think that we face today. I mean, you see it even again to come back to the JNU issue since it has been top of the mind. If a student has an opinion different to mine, why should that student be treated as some kind of an anti-national? I have seen in television debates in the last few weeks, students from groups like ISA or AISF being shouted down. They are not even allowed to be heard. They are not even allowed to have a viewpoint. And I believe that our society is strong enough to listen to every opinion. Whether it is a Manipuri student, whether it's a Kashmiri student, whether it's a Maharashtrian, whether it's a Gujarati. And we are all Deshbhaks, and just because someone has a different opinion doesn't make you a Deshdrohi. If we do not come out of this trap, we are dividing India like never before. And sometimes we will get it wrong as a result. We will get it horribly wrong if we continue in this direction of Desh Drohi versus Desh Bhakti. I will not hear your opinion because I don't like it. We will be a very, India's greatness is its diversity. Television needs to respect that diversity. If television is not going to respect diverse opinion, then we are failing this great country of ours.
Sir, on the question of binary, it reminds me of a thing that in India, the very popular notion is we tend to look at media channels, or for that matter, media as an entire collective, in terms of the binaries of it being either an pro-establishment media house or an anti-establishment media house, to the extent that it has become a common sense that we tend to look at media in those terms only. So do you believe that what you just said right now, looking at opinions in terms of binaries, has also got to do with how we tend to perceive media's operation?
I think it's tough to say whether it's about pro-establishment or anti-establishment. I think we carry a lot of prejudices. हमारे बहुत biases हैं. As a society, as a people, as individuals. The journalism, I was told that in journalism you are supposed to offer a mirror. आप एक आईना है. आप सोसाइटी के आपको सोसाइटी दिखानी है गुड बैड एंड अगली. उसमें अच्छाइयाँ भी है, बुराइयाँ भी है. आप बस आईना है. Somewhere down the line from the mirror, we became the participant. From observer, we decided कि छोड़ो observing यार, हम तो खुद player बन जाते हैं. You see, we were supposed to be the 12th man. जर्नलिस्ट जो है वो नॉन प्लेइंग 12th मैन था. लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं हमने सोचा यार ये 12th मैन में कोई मजा नहीं है, हम कप्तान बनना चाहते हैं, हम टीम चलाएंगे. So you see, the moment you change your self image from being the 12th man जो बाहर खड़े रहकर दुनिया देख रहा है, we were the cockroaches. हम तो कॉकरोच थे कि हम देख रहे हैं ये बड़े बड़े लोग आ रहे हैं, कोई महाराजा है, कोई पॉलिटिशियन है, कोई सेलिब्रिटी है. हम उस रूम के कोने में बैठकर कॉकरोच की तरह देख रहे थे. इनसे कभी कभी इनका मजाक उड़ाते थे, कभी कभी इनको देखते थे ये क्या क्या तमाशा करते हैं. फिर हमको लगा ये कॉकरोच बनने में मज़ा नहीं है, हम बनना चाहते हैं उनकी तरह. ये तो सब बटरफ्लाई है, हम बटरफ्लाई बनना चाहते हैं. वी वॉन्ट टू बी लाइक देम, वी वॉन्ट टू बी सेलिब्रिटीज. And the day the journalist stopped being a journalist and decided that I want to be the star, I am the story. The day we became the story, that's where the problem came. It's not about establishment, anti-establishment, as much as when our self-image changed. जिस दिन हमने सोचा यार ये कहानी लिखने में कोई मजा नहीं आता, हम खुद कहानी बनना चाहते हैं, that's when the problem came. And that's when I think journalism has suffered. Because once you become the story, then you start becoming a player. Your prejudices, your biases start deciding which direction you want the story. So I will not play Kanhaiya Kumar's speech in JNU because I don't like Kanhaiya Kumar. मैं समझता हूँ कन्हैया कुमार जो है वो देशद्रोही है, उसकी स्पीच मैं क्यों दिखाऊं? But I will show the speech of someone I like for because वो तो कोई और है. तो अगर हम उस तरह से if that is the kind of journalism we do, I am very happy. My journalism tells me when Narendra Modi speaks, I am happy to show him. When Kanhaiya Kumar speaks, let Kanhaiya Kumar also speak. Let the country and the viewer decide कि किसकी speech आपको अच्छी लगी और किसकी speech बुरी लगी. मैं कौन होता हूँ judgment करने? Judgment is for the viewer. But when I become the judge, when I become the player, then I think when I cease to be the cockroach, then it's a problem.
So from here, I'd like to take it on to a very contentious debate that has been raging this entire work of journalism. I mean, do you really feel that it is possible to get over our prejudices, our biases, or if I may put it in a little polite manner, our ideological inclinations while carrying out the work of journalism? Do you really feel that is possible?
It's probably not. We are all human beings. हम सब समाज में है. We all come from a society. हमारे biases होंगे, हमारे prejudices होंगे. That will be there. It's inevitable. You can't run away from that. But I think what journalism always has to do in a story, there is nothing like neutrality. आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि ये भी सही है और ये भी सही है. कुछ तो गलत भी है, और सही को सही कहना और गलत को गलत कहना बायस नहीं है, न्यूट्रलिटी नहीं, बायस नहीं है, न्यूट्रलिटी नहीं है, सच्चाई है. किसी भी चीज में कुछ चीज कभी कभी सच्ची होती है, गलत होती है. जर्नलिस्ट हैज टू से दैट. दैट डजंट मेक मी बायस्ड. If God forbid tomorrow there is a riot, or God forbid there is a crime where a woman is raped, am I going to have, there are no two sides to the story. There is someone who is a victim. If there is a terror attack tomorrow, there is a terrorist and there is a victim. If there is a riot, there is a victim and there is an oppressor. If there is a rapist, if there is a rape, there is the rapist and there is the victim. And the journalist must always stand with the victim. And standing with the victim is the critical element. Now, does that make me biased, prejudiced, कि आपने एक तरफा जर्नलिज्म कर ली? नहीं. एक तरफा क्या होता है? मुझ पर ये इल्ज़ाम लगाया गया है, गुजरात 2002 में लगाया गया, 92-93 के दंगों में लगाया गया है कि आप एक तरफा जर्नलिज्म कर रहे थे. मैंने कहा सर आप मेरे साथ चलिए और आप मुझे बताइए कि मैं किसकी कहानी दूं. Whose story do I tell? Do I tell the story of the victim or do I tell the story of the oppressor? And we told the story of the victims. There were Hindu victims and there were Muslim victims and both their stories were told. लेकिन कभी कभी हमारे मन में जो बायस होता है, जो मैं जो दर्शक हूं, I the viewer, I have my biases and prejudices and I want the journalist to confirm my prejudice and bias. That is the problem. कि मैं जो दर्शक हूं, मैं चाहता हूं कि आप वही कहे जो जिससे मुझे अच्छा लगेगा, और अगर आप वो बात कहे जो मुझे अच्छी लगेगी तो मैं न्यूट्रल बन जाता हूं, और अगर आपको मेरी बात अच्छी नहीं लगे तो आप कहते हैं यार ये तो बायस्ड है. एक्चुअली बायस इज इन द लाइज ऑफ द बिहोल्डर. बायस आपका बायस आप मुझ पर थोप रहे हो, वो मैं नहीं मंजूर करता.
Right. Sir, given the ideological situation in this country today, I think it's very pertinent to ask this question. In India, we have essentially understood communal polarization as a means of electioneering. I mean, there's a very popular understanding. We say, ये दंगे फसाद तो नेता लोग करवाते हैं अपने फ़ायदे के लिए, कॉमन आदमी तो लड़ना नहीं चाहता है. But time and again, we have seen in cases of many riots where institutions which are otherwise organs of the state, let us say the police, the bureaucracy, that have actively or inactively, in a way, participated in the operation of those riots. You mentioned Bal Thackeray a little while earlier. This brings me to a very pertinent point. When Bal Thackeray passed away, let's not forget that Mr. Bal Thackeray was never held any public office. He was not even a councillor of a municipality. He was given a state honor. The parliament observed 2 minutes of silence, and there were certain media houses which carried out long stories on him, eulogizing his life and his activities, whereas I guess we all are aware that what kind of politics Mr. Bal Thackeray carried out. So in this case, don't you feel that probably this element of communalization or communal polarization has in a certain way crept within the premises of media as well, and in some way it has also acted in probably perpetuating the communal polarization that already exists?
It's a good question. I don't have an easy answer, particularly when I think about my own coverage of Bal Thackeray's funeral, and I start asking myself, did we all get carried away by the crowds that came in? Look, he was a popular leader. He was a mass leader. You have to also accept that the Shiv Sena was, in the context of Mumbai, certainly a mass party. So he will get crowds, and you again have to tell the story that there are large numbers of people who have come there. You cannot ignore that. At the same time, you have to tell the other darker side of a man as well. Sometimes in death, we don't tell the darker side, but there is a darker side. Balancing that is a challenge. But you spoke of communalization of the media. I think that is a serious problem. I think communalization is not just in terms of physical violence. I think the real communalization which takes place in the media is the communalization of the mind. I see it today in social media. Please look at the kind of abuse and the kind of what you see on social media. मैं नहीं जानता आप में से कितना ये ट्विटर फेसबुक करते हैं, शायद सब फेसबुक करते हैं. But I see on the because every individual, अगर आप अपना नाम ना दे, गुमनाम रहे, anonymous रहे, तो आपकी छाती भी 56 की हो जाती है. क्योंकि गुमनाम छाती जो होती है वो आप उसको लेकर किसी के बारे में कुछ भी कह सकते हैं और आप पे कोई डेफर्मेशन नहीं लगेगा. So there is a communalization which goes on in the mind, which is reflected on social media. It is reflected within the media in the sense that today we want to stereotype people. And I'll give you an example. I was on आज तक के एक एडिटर से मिल रहा था, वो प्रोग्राम कर रहा था एक, and I saw the same bearded Muslim gentleman with a topi there for 3 days in a row on a particular subject. तो मैंने कहा यार रोज इसको क्यों लाते हो, कोई और आपके पास आवाज़ें नहीं है उसी को लाते हो? नहीं सर, देखिए ऐसा है कि अगर आप चैनल म्यूट पे चलाए यानी बगैर आवाज़ के, तो लोग देखेंगे ना कि एक मुसलमान है दाढ़ी के टोपी पहन के, लाकि लोगों को लगेगा यार झगड़ा हो रहा है. You see, if what he was trying to say, if I show someone who's clean shaven, who doesn't look like a Muslim or doesn't look like a Muslim, then he will not be able to attract the audience. And I thought that was a bizarre way of stereotyping an entire community. And it is the same individual 3 days in a row. तो आप एक हिंदू महासभा के बंदे को लाओगे और वो हिंदू महासभा का कोई वोट नहीं है, और एक कोई मुस्लिम ग्रुप जिसका भी कोई गरीब नवाज या कोई ग्रुप होता है उसका, अब which गरीब he stands for only he knows, probably only himself. So that guy from that Garib Nawaz group and the guy from the Hindu Mahasabha are debating a contentious communal issue from their own perspective. हम जानते हैं उनको स्टूडियो बुलाने की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है, उनको स्टूडियो के बाहर ही आप जानते हैं उनकी क्या पर्सपेक्टिव है. बट यू हैव डिसाइडेड दैट इट इज़ द सेम बाइनरी कि जब तक आप झगड़ा नहीं करवाओगे, अनलेस यू विल नॉट हैव टू पोलर एक्सट्रीम व्यूज, तब तक यार मज़ा नहीं आएगा. तो आपने मीडिया को मज़ा बना दिया. जब आप खुद नौटंकी बनाते हो तो फिर तमाशेकार के लिए कोई अच्छे लोग तो आएंगे नहीं. Very often nowadays, whenever I ask when I ask a moderate, intelligent person to come on TV, he says, "यार सर क्यों बुलाते हो? तुम तो तमाशा करोगे." So that is the problem. You have created the communalization of the media is because we are falling into stereotype. We have decided, as I said earlier also, who's the enemy, who's right, who's wrong. And once you do that, you are entering a very dangerous, we are going down a very, very slippery slope in this country. So I worry about that. We are supposed to be ahead of society. Frankly, मैं तो समझता हूँ समाज हमसे 10 कदम आगे है. In fact, most people have realized कि हम नौटंकी करते हैं. ये सबसे अच्छी बात है कि many people don't take us as seriously as they should. And maybe that will finally convince us. If society moves 10 steps ahead of us, I will be the happiest person. Because that means that you have realized कि ये जो मीडिया वाले हैं ये तमाशाकार है, ये नौटंकी है, ये झगड़ा करवाना चाहते हैं टीवी पर. हम कोई मसला सुलझाना नहीं चाहते. हम किस तरह से मसले को और